violence, domestic violence, and stalking. And I also help coordinate and spread the word about our victim services for any student, faculty, or staff member who experiences one of these types of crimes. And we do partner with a local agency called Connecting Communities in Action. So any individual who's part of our SBU community who seeks support is actually able to do that confidentially through our community partner. And this is all made possible by a grant that we have from the federal government. It's from the United States Department of Justice Office on Violence Against Women. And officially it's called the Campus Program, but what we do entails a lot more than just a program, because we're trying to make sure that everyone is aware that St. Bonaventure offers all of this education, programming, and services.
Empower does a lot on campus. I've talked to them multiple times for the BV, the Bonaventure, if you don't know what that is. And we've been back and forth about all the programs they've been doing. Recently, they've done an event called Yards for Yardley. Could you give us more information about that event?
Absolutely. We're really grateful to the BV for giving us that coverage, because this was our second year doing the event called Yards for Yardley. Last year, our campus was remote, and we did our first Yards for Yardley while remote. The premise of Yards for Yardley is simple. You move in honor of either Yardley love or someone else that you know personally, family member, friend, that has been affected by relationship or domestic violence. Now, unfortunately, Yardley Love lost her life to relationship violence. She was a Division I lacrosse player at the University of Virginia, and she was just about to graduate when, unfortunately, she lost her life to relationship violence. So we honor Yardley, but we also try to support survivors, people dealing with this type of violence at this time, and we ask people to count their yards, which means converting steps or miles of any distance that you travel throughout the day or exercise for Yardley Love. And it's a national movement. It's basically part of the foundation that was named in honor of Yardley called One Love. And with One Love, we have 100% support for what we do at the university. They are super impressed with what we've done this year, because this year our goal was 5 million yards, but we actually raised 22 million yards for Yardley. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah, that was incredibly impressive how the community stepped together to raise awareness for such an amazing cause. I know you've done way more events on campus. Recently, they've done a Bystander Intervention training. Could you give us more information about what Bystander Intervention is and how does this training help?
Absolutely. So Bystander Intervention is basically what could have saved Yardley Love's life. A lot of people knew that she was in a difficult and sometimes physically violent relationship with her boyfriend, and no one intervened. In fact, the man that killed her ex-boyfriend at the time of her death, he was also a Division I player at the University of Virginia, and his team was planning an intervention. He knew that he was having problems with anger management. He knew that he was in a tumultuous situation. So did his friends, his teammates, his coaches, and unfortunately, no one intervened. So Bystander Intervention is both a research and evidence-based program that can change our campus's culture so that people aren't afraid to step in. And it doesn't have to be a situation of sexual assault, dating, domestic violence, or stalking. Bystander Intervention is great for all of the isms that we experience in our society: sexism, racism, homophobia, any of those situations where you hear language or you see activity. We want to teach people how to intervene before an event escalates, while an event is happening, and also how to provide support for people after something has happened. So we really, really want everyone to participate in bystander intervention training, but the issue with that is that it's time consuming. So we did a 90-minute training on Saturday, April 10th. We had a bunch of faculty, students, and staff participate. We also continued the training to offer train the trainer, which means that the folks who stayed on for that additional 2 hours were able to become trainers of the program. So the idea is to grow the amount of trainers we have on campus so that the program can be offered more widely. We do require all incoming freshmen and transfer students to do bystander intervention. And we also require online modules every year for all students about these topics, including bystander intervention.
Yeah, it's great to hear that students and faculty and staff are training to offer this great way to help victims and help avoid these bad kind of situations. Do you know about how many students have been trained in this?
Well, we've been offering this type of training for many years, but in my position, we really only started offering this new program called Bringing in the Bystander in the fall of this academic year. So we trained a bunch of staff. Of course, I had to get trained on the program to be able to implement it here at St. Bonaventure. And in January of 2020, we trained a bunch of staff. We were planning to have a lot of trainings, but COVID-19 happened. And so we have offered training online, haven't had a ton of participants. But as I mentioned, the entire incoming freshman class this year was required to do this bystander intervention training as part of their orientation. And we were assisted greatly by the Student Success Center, who had their orientation team and peer coaches in rooms with students while we live streamed the training. Ideally, we like to do this training in small groups, and so having student volunteers and student support is crucial to the success of this program. As you mentioned, our student group is called Empower, and many of those students are also either trained in the 90-minute program or trainers of the program. So on Saturday, we had Olivia Boyd, who's a senior here at St. Bonaventure, participating as a trainer in the program.
That's great to hear. I'd like to plug in their kind of Instagram at this moment because they do so much on campus and offer so many great activities. And their Instagram's at SBU_Empower. You can go on there to try to keep up to date with everything that they've been doing. Dr. Eastman, is there any other programs that you focus on when you're in Empower? Group meetings?
Yeah, so Empower meets every Thursday at 5 p.m. And as I mentioned, we do a lot of collaboration with the One Love organization, and they are trying really hard to get the messages out to all students from all backgrounds, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, or gender identities. They are trying to make sure the message is there for everyone. So part of our program is also Safe Zone, sometimes called Safe Place or Safe Space training. I've been a trainer of that program for over a decade. I started doing it at a different university before I came to St. Bonaventure, but we provide that training because statistically, individuals who identify as LGBTQ or non-binary tend to experience these types of sexual crimes at a higher rate. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So we want to spread the word to have allyship on our campus and make sure that all students feel welcome in our programs. We have also in the past worked with the Latin American Student Organization, providing a culturally relevant training for them. And we actually got their feedback and their critiques on the training. We were planning to do a program with the Black Student Union last year before COVID-19 hit, and that fell through. But we really want all members of the campus community to feel supported. It could be seen as a little bit controversial to say this, but we're not a white chicks club. We have men, we have women, we have people who identify in different ways. Some of our student leaders are actually veterans, so they're non-traditional students in terms of their age and experience. We also have many students who, because of COVID-19, have really had to step back this year just for their own personal self-care because, these are heavy topics. But our Empower students have the option to undergo an 8-hour certification training. And that is what makes them peer educators. So if you check us out on our Instagram, SBU_empower, right now we're profiling or giving information about some of those educators. And, there are many students who just feel compelled because they have either a personal or family or friend connection to these topics, and they want to make sure that our campus is safe for all students.
Yeah, I'd like to highlight kind of how this club is for more than just women, because sexual assault and dating violence, domestic violence can happen to all walks of life. So it's really important that though women are kind of in this at a higher rate, it also affects a bunch of people. And as if you find yourself in this kind of situation, Empower is there to help you. They have a 24-hour hotline linked to Connecting Communities in Action. Dr. Eastman, would you be able to provide more information on this hotline and its help?
Absolutely. So as Cassidey mentioned, we have this wonderful 24/7 hotline. And the number, of course, is not going to be easy for people to remember, but we give out these little blue cards when we do trainings, and we give them out to all students who live on campus when they come to campus. So these little blue cards, we tell students, put it in your wallet, carry it with you somehow, or just take a picture of it on your phone, because you never know when you might be in crisis. Of course, students can always call campus security. They can always get in touch with their RA or RD if they live on campus. We highly recommend that. 911, important number. But this number, 1-888-945-3970, is a 24/7 hotline for anyone. It doesn't have to be someone who is the victim. It can be their friend calling on their behalf. It can be someone who's just concerned about a situation and wants to ask questions. So this hotline is open to anyone. And on campus, we have a victim advocate who is funded through this grant program from the Office on Violence Against Women. And she is an employee of Connecting Communities in Action, but she has office space here on campus. She meets with students, faculty, and staff by appointment. Her name is Tiffany Bear, and she is a wonderful asset to our campus to have someone who is confidential, not a university employee, that students can talk to, faculty and staff can talk to. For example, a lot of people just get concerned about a friend or someone they're in class with and they don't know where to turn. Tiffany can provide that confidential support and resources. The other amazing thing about the fact that we are in New York State is that we actually have a law. It's called Enough is Enough. And that law requires us to have an additional campus advocate. And her name is Kathleen Ramey, and she's also an employee of CCA. So these are individuals who are part of our campus community, but they're not employed here and they are confidential.
Yeah, that support is great for any students who face this sort of crisis. And it is definitely a very difficult time if you face any of these problems to be kind of lost, and to have these amazing clubs and hotlines and all these amazing support just on our campus and in the community. It's great to just be able to turn to someone who's always there to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does Empower and offer any more services that students might be interested in, or faculty or staff? Because this is not just a program for students, it's a program for anyone in the campus community.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. Basically, every semester we have several different programs that we run, and many of those are based on Empower student and students from other clubs and organizations, SGA students, students who are majoring in a field that relates to victimology and victim situations. So we've had, for example, students from sociology, criminology, psychology, the master's program in counseling in the School of Ed. We've had students from all of those different paths, as well as professors, really help us with those programs. This semester, we did a couple Netflix series discussions. We talked about Bridgerton, and Bridgerton is a kind of popular Netflix series right now for some folks. We talked about the actual rape of a man in that program, and we wanted to bring to light the fact that men, just like women, experience sexual assault. And we wanted to bring also awareness to the idea that consent is important for all types of interactions with someone that you're with. And it's important to have that consent every time. So we did a series discussion also on stalking from Netflix series You. That one came out a couple years ago. I believe they're on maybe season 3 now. But many people romanticize this guy who's a stalker in that program. And, you know, we were talking about the entertainment purposes, but also the realities of stalking and how, because of COVID-19, so much stalking now isn't in person, but it's online through social media. We did a program on sugaring or sugar dating. And that is when people get paid money to provide pictures, videos, or images, or even sometimes voice of themselves to someone for money. And a lot of students are facing hardships, not being able to have jobs, not being able to get employment because of COVID-19. So we had our victim advocate, Kathleen, do a special program on sugaring and how to caution and protect yourself if you or someone you know is doing this kind of work.
Yeah, all great, amazing talks to be a part of and to kind of weigh your voice in and be heard on campus. Because this is April, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Dr. Eastman, how can anyone in the campus community or anyone in the greater community around us kind of raise awareness for sexual assault, not just in April, but throughout the rest of the year?
Well, you know, Cassidy, I think what people don't know is how frequent this happens to college age students, how frequently they are victims of these types of crimes. So sadly, even though St. Bonaventure is a phenomenal university with a phenomenal surrounding community that is very supportive of the things we do, we still fall under the national statistic that 1 in 4 women of college age will experience some form of sexual assault during their college career, and 1 in 16 men will experience some form of sexual assault. So this means unwanted sexual, either touching or inappropriate behavior. Of course, we know the extreme of that is going to be something like rape. But these incidents actually happen at a very high rate in this age group, and this is nationwide. The program that I am funded under is over 20 years old. So I'm dating myself here. But when I was a freshman in college, that program had just started. And I have a 10-year-old daughter. I want these statistics to change for her and her friends. I don't want us to be living in a society where our culture accepts rape. And the biggest issue that anyone who wants to support survivors or victims or people that are just dealing with the trauma of what's happened is to seek help. People don't report these crimes, and the numbers are actually staggering. It's around 70% of people who experience these crimes that do not report. So knowing how to report or how to seek confidential help. Not everyone wants to file a grievance or a complaint, but some people do want to get the help that they need to process what's happened to them and to move on. So even if a student, faculty, or staff member experienced an assault years ago, they can still use our services to get help. There's free counseling available, there's support programs, and of course, our peer prevention educators are available on campus to talk to students and lead them in that path. So we really just want the awareness out there, and we want our students, faculty, and staff to know that they can process and work through these issues in confidence, and there are no strings attached because there's no payment and there's no fees associated with anything. Even medical treatment from these types of crimes is completely confidential and free.
That's great to hear that there's such support for these really challenging times. I think one of the biggest things about raising awareness for sexual assault and dating and domestic violence is just visibility. A lot of time in this culture, it's good to hide those things, but it should really be talked about. It should really be heard. And I feel like our campus does a great job at that, not only with Empower, but the posters around campus, the little blue cards with the hotlines. I know every time I go into a bathroom on campus or in my dorm room, right on the back of the door is a huge little info thing about everything I can do if I find myself in such a situation. And
thank you. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because we really are trying to spread the word, and we want to respect people, and we want to give people the space they need. But a lot of folks just kind of see that poster. It looks like this, in case you're wondering. They'll see that poster 100 times and not really register what it's saying. But there are many different options for any individual who's experiencing this. And like you said, visibility is important. A lot of people don't report because of fear of retaliation. And we have measures to protect survivors of these crimes that we implement when needed. So it's spreading awareness and debunking the myth that nothing is done, because yes, things are done. A lot of things, unfortunately, have to remain confidential, so we can't share the results of what's happening. But if you need support, there is support, and it is confidential.
yeah, I know another thing regarding this kind of topic is victim blaming. And that could be a really challenging thing to go through if you end up reporting and it somehow gets out, even though everything's confidential, that victim blaming becomes a crucial thing. How has Empower kind of directed the campus away from that kind of mindset that we see in our culture today?
That is a really challenging question, and I'll tell you that one of our key strategies is trying to harness the power of masculinity, positive masculinity. Because when men stand up against rape culture, when men stand up against victim blaming, we see their leadership, and it shifts the dialogue. So none of our programming is aimed at blaming men or women. We want to take everyone's personal power and elevate that. And statistically, the actual degree of false reporting nationwide for these types of crimes is in between 2 to 10%. And that is the same statistic for false reports of other crimes, such as breaking and entering, auto theft, murder. All of these types of crimes get falsely reported occasionally, but it's usually in that 2 to 10% range. So, the Me Too movement was a few years ago. It's kind of lost some of the steam that it had initially, but that Me Too movement was not just for women. It was for men, it was for LGBTQ, it was for all races, all ethnicities, all religions, all cultures. And that movement was trying to say, hey, this happens and we're not making it up. So we really look to the leadership of our student athletes, our students who are in other clubs and organizations, any student who is willing to even give Empower 30 minutes of one of their meetings a semester to do a short training. We want their time and we want their attention, because again, 1 in 4 college women and 1 in 16 college men is just unacceptable rates of these types of crimes.
Exactly. And hopefully with these including measures and slowly pushing forward, we can see those numbers begin to go down in the next coming years. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation? And before we have a little bit time to close up here.
No, I just want to encourage anyone who has questions to reach out to me or Empower. Again, you can contact us through our Instagram, which is SBU_Empower. And my email is very simple. It's J as in Jennifer, Eastman, EASTMAN @sbu.edu. I'm on campus. My office is in the Riley Center. And anyone with questions can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk on the phone, Zoom, meet in person, of course, in a socially distant and safe way. But I can also connect anyone to our resources who doesn't know where to start. And that's where a lot of students come to me. They say, I know what you do on campus, Dr. Eastman, but I really don't know what to do here. So I'm that person who would love to be able to offer any guidance or support to students, faculty, and staff who just have questions.
Yeah, I would like to, as we're closing up here, remind anyone who is facing these kind of issues that there is support out there and there are people who can help and who can listen. And you're not lost. There's so many people here to help out. And Empower is a great organization that will be more than happy to help you or your friends if they're going through something. And you could always reach out. I'd like to thank Dr. Eastman for joining me today to talk about this heavy topic, but very important topic to be heard. And I hope everyone who's listening has a great day.
Thanks, Cassidy.